Welcome to the Life's Best Medicine podcast, where we are finding hope and healing one episode at a time. No appointment needed, no rubber gloves, and no copay. Just a healthy dose of life lessons to help equip you for this wild journey we call life. Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us again. It's that time of year where we pay for our past sins, where we start exercising and watching our diet, trying to get our tight clothes looser on us and all those kind of things. So you may have given in to Aunt Betty's famous pie. You may have had some cookies, things like that you shouldn't have had. I shouldn't even say the words right now, but now you can have something delicious that won't make you feel terrible. Simply snacking. Beef and chicken, great snacks, high protein, low carb. This is what we're preaching around here. So everyone, grab yourself some Simply Snacking, have it with you when you're traveling, have it in your purse, have it in your glove compartment. They'll help you stay on track. So thank you for sponsoring us today. And everyone, I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello and welcome back to the Life's Best Medicine podcast. I think we have a hero here. I think we have someone who's been through a lot of challenges. I was at a low carb meeting and we just ran into each other. I'm like, this is a nice guy. I could tell just the look in his eyes, his temperament. And he said, doc, there's a lot more to the story type thing. And so I'm really looking forward to it. And he's doing a lot of good stuff, helping people. And this is what this podcast is about, really about how we come together, how we help people, how we go through trials in life. And we use those trials, even though at the time we may think it makes no sense, to help others. So Eric Reynolds, Keto 5-0.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me, man. It's so good to have you.
Awesome, man. I'm super excited. Hopefully I keep my energy level down. I'm not like Michelle Hearn out there on stage or anything.
Yeah, man, she was pretty awesome. I'll have to give her that, man. She was full of energy, but you are too, man. I could tell you just have this desire for life and a passion. So that's, a lot of people just don't have that, especially going through what you went through. So let's start way back. Like when you were young growing up, I mean, did you want to be a police officer growing up, or was it something that just kind of happened? Did you fall into it? How did you end up doing what you did for a career path?
Well, like a lot of us, we have military in the family, especially going back with our grandfathers and stuff like that. But pretty much my mother was a police officer in Miami-Dade County for 30 years. And she was a homicide sergeant, and she was like super cop back then. And I was just a little boy, my mom she was always a cop to me, and it wasn't easy. Let me tell you, she had me under wraps and on lockdown at times. But that's where it got started. I started seeing what she was doing. And, eventually after high school, college or military, went to college. And then after college, it was like, what am I going to do now? You want to hear about that? What I did after college, I started catching shoplifters, which was one of the best jobs ever, man. That's back when you can chase people down and tackle them and handcuff them and all this stuff. It was almost like a practice run for being a cop.
Well, nowadays, it seems like people help them put this stuff in the car.
Yeah. Well, you can't tackle anybody anymore. Too many lawsuits, they'll sue the big time store because I tackled the guy. So
yeah, but you see it now that people just run in, they take whatever they want, and people just wave them out and say, "Don't say anything, let them go." Right, and so that encourages more of that behavior.
Yeah,
you tackling a few people. Everyone else said, "No, I don't need to steal anything. I'll just pay for it."
I've got some. I did it for 8 years because I became a cop when I was about 31 years old. So I got into that field a little later, but. Man, I got videos of the old days. It's some funny stuff, man. And of course, it's on VHS, so the quality is not like it is now, but it's still pretty cool. But I do notice I was freaking metabolically sick. It was just starting when I look back at those videos. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and I saw the picture. I mean, the video, man, I watched your other video. We'll get to that. But, man, I'm telling you, it's like,
yeah,
in the chest, man. I could just imagine the adrenaline rush you guys have and what you go through. So you end up being a police officer. You go through the training. What was your career like and life like?
It was awesome. I mean, I started in 2001 with Boynton Beach Police Department here in Florida, and that's where I was catching shoplifters. So they kind of said, "Hey, man, you may want to step your game up. At least you get a cool Batman belt. You get little toys on your, pepper spray and." Get a gun just in case you have some real bad guys to fight. So I did it. I was thinking about the pension and long term, and it was good. I mean, my city was a busy city. We had a little bit of everything. You had your hood, you had your beaches, you had your middle class. It was just us, like a little big city. So we had everything, all kinds of opportunities to join different specialty units, so I was in a bike unit for a while and teaching kids. I would help out the vice unit, and sometimes we kicked down doors, and it was just, everything was just right on schedule. It was fun being a cop and lifting weights and looking cool, but in the end, it was really making a difference. I really loved it. Catching bad guys is what I wanted to do.
How about the people you worked with, man? Did you think they had your same desire and passion, and that they wanted to make society better?
Yeah, I mean, we start off that way, and then, obviously I've always thought that it should be a 10-year career, and we tap out and start a whole nother career, because that last 10, 20 years that puts on these poor guys, man, you sell part of your soul for that pension, let me tell you, and there's stuff that keeps you at night. And I did almost 20 years when I pulled the plug. I was like, I got to get out of this.
Yeah, and that's really important, because that's your passion. I can see your passion. You love to do the right thing, but I see what you're saying. In it's not so different in medicine. A lot of people go into medicine. We want to help everyone. We have our shiny white coat and our little stethoscope, and we want to save the world. Then we realize we're not saving the world. Then you realize could become a burden, because there's so many patients and you're always overwhelmed. And
Right.
You become cynical because everyone says, well, I wasn't taking drugs. Well, you have all the signs of drug abuse, and okay, I'm gonna check a blood test, because you don't trust anyone. And then I've had people, that look like they're on cocaine were actually on Monster drink, right, or something like that. And you realize, oh my gosh, they're telling the truth, or actually tell, because we become so cynical. And I think doctors were insulated. You're seeing it a lot more on the front lines of being a police officer, where you see the worst of people.
Yeah, and that's the shame, because it does beat you down over a long time, and there's some good things. I mean, there's, unfortunately, you only usually hear about the bad things that cops are getting themselves involved in, whether it's a judgment call, or maybe it's, where do they think they get cops from? We get them from the population. There's not a police officer factory that we go pick these guys from. We have families, we have relationship issues, we have divorces, we have alcoholism, we have a lot of stuff that happens within our ranks. And obviously that leads to a lot of us being, metabolically sick. And that's one of the reasons I'm here. Help talk about that end of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's a critical point. I think that's a critical point in your story that people don't realize enough, that when we're metabolically sick, the joke is that policemen are having coffee and donuts every day. And so sometimes you start gaining weight, you start feeling bad about yourself, you're going through relationship problems. There's data on this stuff. It's not just us being nutty. It's really, you look at prison data, wherever they take sugar out, they have less violence. Whether they put sugar in, they have more violence. And tell me it doesn't have something to do with those things. And in the police force too. And I think dealing with that adrenaline, probably cortisol rushes all the time. And sometimes you want more of that rush. I mean, people get addicted to that rush part of it, because I could, that just the video I watched of you last night, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, if I was part of that, I could imagine the adrenaline rush, how your brain functions in that setting, where it's your life or someone else's life at some point.
Yeah. There was, it's an honorable career. Don't get me wrong, but, politics gets in the way, local government and laws. I mean, sometimes, you keep arresting people and they keep getting out, and, and I see, you see cops lose their cool, man. They get frustrated with the system, and maybe it's because they're not seeking help in other aspects of their life, so they don't have that reaction at that time. But it also could be PTSD that's undiagnosed, that they've had their whole life, especially their prior military. Now you got a guy working, kind of the front lines in our country, and it's just not spoken enough about, unfortunately, that they're suffering from a lot of stuff, not just they're physically, but mentally with that job.
Well, plus I think there's a certain genetic predisposition to be a cop or to be a SEAL, or you have to be able to metabolize stress hormones better. And I'm actually going to give a talk on this, I think, because I have friends who are SEALs, and they're the most chill guys on earth. They're like you would be a Navy SEAL. Like, your temperament is that of, and they go, but the difference is they go into a situation and they see bad stuff and do bad stuff. And depending on your perspective of, what you're looking at, but they get out really quickly, and they're at home having dinner with their wife that night or the next day, and they're, off, and then they get called in again. But the frontline guys who are there day after day after day have a different, it really affects their psyche and their depression, anxiety, stress hormones, and all that stuff, because it's a chronic stress. For instance, exercise is an acute stress. it actually helps you to go under that stress. But when you're chronically in that, like when you're a police officer for 20 years, the tolls on the body. And we were talking about it at dinner, actually, that, you know, one of the guys was saying that the average policeman dies within 5 years of retirement. You think, wow, you spend all that money into the system, you try to get that pension, you go those extra 10 years to get that pension, but at what cost?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I could tell you the story after story of guys that have had multiple pensions, whether it's military, police, and then they get sometimes a school board job just to get, you know, a few more years, and then they never survive like more than 10 years afterwards. It's a shame. I just went to a retirement party and they were announcing all the people that, you know, unfortunately didn't make this party. And you start seeing the names and you're like, wow, you know, that guy was kind of young. You know, but I've seen it across society in my own journey the last 3.5 years. I've been paying attention. You know, I see it. I see what's going on.
Well, when you told me you were out on retirement, on medical retirement, you know, I was like, this guy's young. You know, to me, now I guess the older I get, everyone's younger and younger looking, right? But you know, the fact is, you were smart enough to get out, and maybe you had to get out. Well, I don't know the story yet. This is why I've been on the podcast to share it. So you go through these all this time, 20 years, you said?
19 as sworn. I was there a year doing like some civilian stuff to kind of get my foot in the door in the department, you know, pay my dues. And then, you know, I retired on my 50th birthday. How cool is that, to walk out, my new retirement badge and ID, and, you know, I walked out. And it's funny, it's my 50th birthday. I was like, oh, Keto 505. That kind of makes sense, right?
Oh yeah, that's cool, man.
Blended together. And I did, you know, Doug Reynolds' podcast was episode 50. So it's just always like, it just seemed like 50 was the freaking number to, you know, to pull the plug on that career.
Man, I didn't even know you did Doug's podcast already.
Well, I did it 2 years ago. So I wasn't, you know, I wasn't trained in any of this stuff that I've been trained in the last 1.5 years. So it could be a different podcast back then compared to now.
Awesome. I'm going to go back, and everyone go and listen. It's Low Carb USA. Go back and listen to that podcast. I definitely will do that. So tell me what happened.
Okay. So, I was on road patrol. You know, I was kind of debating whether I should get promoted or not. And that's a big responsibility to get promoted. Not only is it a lot of stress within, you're responsible sometimes for a whole shift. And I'd seen guys get, you know, bosses that weren't even on scene get indicted because they were the watch commander. And I was like, man, I just had a little boy at home, you know, he was like 4 or 5 months old. And, you know, I like coming home at a regular time. And I saw my mom go through 30 years of being on call, hostage negotiator. You know, she was a divorced single female back then, and she got it done, you know, but she wasn't around a lot, you know, and she made it work. I'm not sitting here crying, oh, my mommy wasn't home, but she had to push herself to, you know, to give us a good life. And so I remember that, you know, money's not everything. So I was just going to chill on road patrol. And then that fateful day, June 12th, stay away from June 12th. You ever look up whatever happened in the history of June 12th, you might be a little surprised. And Ebola went out from a nearby city where they just had an armed bank robbery with a guy that came in and held up a Chase Bank and got away with money and left, you know, in a red car. And they came out as a Crown Vic. And I went to the area along with some other officers because they could enter our city, or they could go many different directions. They could have gone to different jurisdictions. And I saw a red car coming over a bridge coming towards me. And, you know, spidey senses start tingling because that had a white top. It was a red car with a white top. You don't see a ton of them. But this one was a Lincoln Town Car, not a Crown Vic. So, you know, I don't know if this is the bad guy or not, you know. And I get behind him and he has handicap tags. I'm like, this is some old guy coming from the beach. You know, it's probably not him. I don't light him up or anything. All of a sudden he stops right in the middle of the road. I'm like, what's this guy doing, right? And looking back, I know what he was going to do, but I didn't know it at that time. So a few seconds goes by and then he takes off. So I'm calling it out, lights and sirens. Now we're in a full chase. I guess it's my bank robber or somebody that's wanted for something else that's just taken off. Sometimes that does happen. You're chasing the wrong guy for the wrong reason.
Yeah, why do you think he stopped?
He was going to ambush me.
Wow.
Yeah. Whew. Okay, so give me a second. Damn. You know,
I know, man. I got goosebumps all over my body just looking at you, man.
I haven't thought about that situation in a long time, that
Yeah, those
particular
things
moment,
don't go away, man. They stay with you, right?
right? So he stopped, and I guess if I was a younger officer or something, or any officer, I could have got out and said, "Hey, man, your car matches the description." I'd walk up cautiously, and hey, your car matches the description. Do you have ID? And that's what I think about. So I just waited. I was waiting for backup. I don't have to rush this, and he took off. So now we're in the car chase, and lights and sirens, and it's like 5 o'clock traffic. So I'm like, oh my God, there's all these cars everywhere. And finally we go on a little chase, and he ends up crashing, making a left turn. He cut it too tight. And do you want anything? You want to ask me anything else? You want me to just
No, I saw it. Actually, I watched your video, your dash cam.
Right.
And we'll make if it's okay with you, I can send a link on here so they could see what we're talking about.
Yeah, there's 2 videos. I had an old police car, and I remember when we took the road down where he eventually crashes, and my camera wasn't on. It would turn off and on. It was on, budgeted to get replaced, but at this particular moment, it wasn't recording. So I hit record. So the most of the chase is on Officer Monroe, his camera, and that's where you see the fun stuff. And then unfortunately, when he had to get a tactical position, you can't see anything from his camera except the bushes getting lit up. But he crashes. I start to think he's going to get out and run, right? So I'm jumping out of my car, and I got a little too close because when someone comes to a sudden stop, you're not exactly able to just put yourself in a tactical advantage at that point. So I rolled up on him kind of fast. So I jump out, and I see his door starting to open, but because of the impact, he can't get it all the way open, just kind of swinging back and forth. And all of a sudden I see, I think I even heard the shots before I saw that he had a gun. I already had my gun out because you're thinking it's a felony situation, armed bank robbery. And I started seeing the ground light up like the Wild West when they used to make people dance, right? And it's hitting around my legs, and I'm moving. I ended up taking a concealment kind of behind a telephone pole. I should start laying rounds down. And then Officer Monroe was returning fire because the bad guy reached out and he starts he's spraying both ways.
He was just indiscriminately shooting.
Yeah, and he hit me twice. That's what's freaking crazy. So we returned fire. We put over 30 something rounds into the car. We hit him about 14 times. He died at the scene. After the shooting, I'm backing away. One of our SWAT guys has a rifle. He's like, "We got this, Eric," and I'm backing away, and I start to feel a pain in my left foot. It turns out I got shot through the left foot, and I took a graze off my right leg. That left a pretty nice little chunk, but I'm glad it didn't hit the shin bone or anything like that. That kind of mechanical injury would have dropped me at that point in the fight. I was going off adrenaline. It was pretty much all muscle and nerve damage that happened. So I was able to stay in the fight. And
your training kicks in too. Yeah,
this whole, I'm shot and you fall down. We're not taught that. You keep fighting because the next shot could be the one that gets you. So it was get him before he got us. And then I remember calling my wife because they're taking me to the hospital. I remember asking a paramedic, "How's the guy?" Because I don't know. I wasn't concerned, but I still wanted to know. Like, this guy just tried to kill me, right? And he's like, "Oh no, he's dead." And it was a surreal moment.
Had you ever been involved in a shooting before or been shot at?
No, I've been on scene like as backup with some shots fired. Actually, about a year and a half before. That was with a homicide guy that I guess wanted to go out. But yeah, to take a life. I didn't get into this job to do that. It can happen. And there's some gung-ho guys that are probably like, "Yeah, I want to take it." You don't know. That guy was trying to kill me, and I had to kill him. Me and Officer Monroe did, and that's just what on that day. That's how it was. It was a battle, and he lost.
It could have been a lot. It could have been a lot different. It could have been a lot different for you too.
Yeah, and I remember calling my wife because I didn't want a police car to pull up, and scare the hell out of her, or heck out of her. Sorry. And and I call her and I hear my son crying in the background. Typical mom stressed out being with the baby all day, poor thing, and I'm calling her and I'm like, "Hey, there's a little incident. I got nicked in the foot. I'm going to the hospital for some stitches," right? Just calming things down. She's like, "Okay, I'll talk to you later." I was like, "Hey, that's it." That's all I'm getting.
Yeah, she had no idea.
No,
And
she
how
didn't
long ago?
know.
How long ago was this?
This is 2012. So my
Okay.
anniversary is coming up this summer, June 2022. Yeah, it'll be 10 years.
Wow, man.
So, and then there was a bunch of stuff happened afterwards that kind of, led me down to this path. It took me about 3 months to recover. I was at home all this time with my 5-month-old son. My first Father's Day spent in a boot, after they pulled out all the bullet fragments and stuff. And, you start thinking about Father's Day. Man, that's my first one.
You were the only one who got hit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Besides
wow.
the back,
Yeah, I mean of the officers I'm talking about.
Yeah, I was the only one. And, he had a jam. I don't even know how many shots he fired, but he was able to get me. I keep thinking back. What was I doing? Was I standing there? But I was moving, so I don't know. Maybe I ran into a couple of those rounds just trying to clear my, the door I was behind wasn't enough protection. That's why I was moving.
And the perp never said anything. He just fired.
No, but he'd been looked at, I guess, by the FBI for some other bank robberies. And based on his age, I think he knew he was going to go away probably the rest of his life. And that's probably why he was like, well, I'm going to tap out now. Plus he had, toxicology showed high, lots of cocaine in his system. So he probably that's why he kept moving. I couldn't understand. I remember walking up to the vehicle, shooting in the vehicle, and he's still moving after we backed away. It was like, but, eventually he, died at the scene. So, and then, that's when I started thinking about getting out of police work. It made it real. And I still had, 8 to 10 years to go. Starts working on you a little bit.
Yeah, and after that, did you have to go through investigations, and did you have to go through a lot after that based on?
Yeah, I'm laying in bed and I think, am I going to be indicted? Did I shoot too much? You start just questioning things. I go, wait a minute, I got shot. Screw this guy. But that's common sense. But it doesn't seem like a lot of people in a lot of courts use a lot of common sense sometimes. So, you think about that, and does this guy have family? Is he going to come after my family? Am I just going to be sitting on a call 6 months from now and get shot in the back of the head by this guy's kids? Or, this is just stuff you're thinking about,
Well, plus, I'll say it. What I think is that the media puts you guys in a huge risk, and the inner city youth in a big risk, because they make them deathly afraid of you. They make you deathly afraid of them, and everyone thinks the other guy's out to get them. It's kind of like the whole mask thing, as I see people. Everyone's a threat to each other now, because if you get too close to me, you're going to give me COVID, right? But It's the same thing in that, where you have two sides that are very there's animosity there, and everyone thinks the other one's going to ambush them, so you have to shoot first. So I think when you get in that mindset, it makes things so much more dangerous than saying, hey, look, I'm part of the community, I'm trying to help out here, right? And it depends on how you're viewed. For me, I've always had the utmost respect. My dad told me when I was young, he said, hey, if you get pulled over, you could talk to the judge. Be respectful to the police officer, put your hands on it, do what they tell you to do, right? Even if you think it's unjust, do what they tell you to do, get out alive, and then you can talk about it. But, I've never had a problem. Everyone's been so kind and decent. If the 2 times I've been pulled over, I think if you're respectful, I think it's one of those things. And I would love to hear that psyche. If someone's respectful and kind back to you, do you reflect that? Or if they're aggressive to you, do you get more aggressive? Or how does that work from the police officer's perspective?
You do feel, you feel the vibe, and all of us are different how we're going to respond to that, depending, plus the stress levels and everything else. You might be a little quicker to get in the red than other people. And yeah, I always communication was the biggest thing for me. I did a paper in college. It's not published or anything, don't get me wrong. It was for minorities in crime class. And I did it on my mom and female law enforcement, how, because of their communication skills, they're able to kind of, I don't know, defuse or, calm things down a lot easier than a macho guy. Because guys, we eyeball each other, we size each other up, and I think it's in our DNA, and I don't know, I learned communication and explaining to people, hey, I pulled you over because you ran the red light, man. Oh, you didn't run the red light? Well, I saw you cross, you explain it to them. I go, I'm gonna run your license, everything checks out. I may let you on your way, but usually I write warnings, usually when I stop cars, though, there's something wrong. license is suspended, no insurance, there's something, or seatbelt, and I'll write them the seatbelt ticket. Hey, have a nice day. Just slow it down. I wasn't out to make. We're not making money off it.
It's funny you say that, because when I landed in Boca, I took an Uber in, and the guy who was bringing me was an ex-police officer, and I was just asking what it was like. So funny that I meet you there too. But I was asking what it was like, and he said, when I was a rookie, he said I was a pain in the. He goes, everyone got cited for everything. No one got away, no one got a warning. And my commanding officer goes, dude, like chill out a little bit. Like you're writing tickets for dumb stuff that doesn't even matter. Like give these guys a little bit of a break. And then he started doing that, and he realized he enjoyed his job a lot more when he says, hey, you know what? Slow it down, be safe. And, that he was kind of making a difference without being punitive with everyone.
Yeah, I had an older cop tell me when I started, old Kenny, he told me, go where the money is. If you're doing a bunch of traffic stops, you're not patrolling the neighborhoods, you're not patrolling the shopping centers, you may not even be driving by schools or something. Keep yourself moving, be visible in parking lots. If you're gonna, do a report, try to. It's one of the things that drives me crazy. Sometimes we'll get together with another officer so I could type my report and he can be my eyes, on what's going on. And then just, hey, there's 2 cops just hanging out in the parking lot, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Sergeant, oh, you guys got to get moving. You're like, geez, I'm just trying to knock out a report here and protect myself. So now I got to go top of a parking garage where nobody can see it. And what's that doing? So that starts to weigh on you too over a whole 20-year career. People telling on you, and just so.
Yeah, just the thought that you could be sitting there in your car and you could get ambushed sitting there. And when we started seeing that more and more, I think, wow, because some of these gangs, the initiation is killing a cop, right, to get into the gang. And so you're an innocent person just sitting there trying to help the community. And then, so I think people just don't realize the psyche of what you had to go through. And I'm glad you can share that from a human perspective, because so many people say all cops are bad or all this. It's not true. There's good, there's going to be bad. Just like anything, there's good doctors and bad doctors. There's good well, there might be good politicians. I don't know. I'll get back to you on that one. But there's a lot of good attorneys out there who are decent, that they're helping people, and they do pro bono work, and they do all this stuff to help the community that they serve.
Yeah, it's I mean, I love doing the job. I mean, one of the best things I did when we were doing bike rodeos for kids, we go to schools, and it's shocking how many kids don't know how to ride a bike nowadays, by the way.
That's true.
It's crazy, but we do these little rodeos and you teach them safety. And one of the, reaching these little kids at that age and just talking to them, and, just letting them know that we're people too. And, we can laugh with them and joke with them. And, that's why I always thought I would get into more of like a coaching role at like a local high school or something like that. And, I had my own kids, and next thing you know, T-ball, I'm coaching that. So I just never was able to get to the like PAL program side of things.
Yeah, you get them on track before they become a disaster. Let them see, hey, maybe I'll be a police officer. Maybe I'll be on that side of it. Because the problem is, and people don't talk enough about this, is that in the inner city, a lot of times they're looking up to the drug dealer, driving the nice car, having the cute girls, having the gold necklace, all these, they have everything, but they don't realize that they're going to end up in prison, killed, and are shot by one of their gang members, whatever. But they don't say, hey, look, let's value education. Let's value, we value shooting a basketball, but we don't value helping other people. And, it's really a pervasive problem, I think, for friends I've talked to, and, what was considered important, like prestige and money and those things. And I know you came to a different conclusion.
Yeah, it's poverty versus the wealthy, really. I mean, I never saw black and white. I saw poor Spanish people. I mean, my mom's Cuban. I know I look like Mr. White Boy, but, I do have the Cuban blood in me. And, I just saw people poor. Maybe a lot of them don't have a direction. I know, in the inner cities, it's the lack of fathers, unfortunately. And you can say that's the system.
I think it's everywhere, man. I don't think it's just the inner city. I've seen some of the richest neighborhoods. As a matter of fact, one of them, one of the big schools in La Jolla, you see the disasters. These kids of privilege are doing crazy stuff, but they don't have parents in the home. Maybe dad's out working all the time, mom's out doing her thing, and they're just sitting by themselves. And they
say the parents are actually there, but they're not there. Like,
exactly right.
So it's still kind of the same situation. And it was sad. I was part of a unit where we would go check on kids, like first time offenders. Maybe did a burglary or something, when they don't want to keep the kid locked up. So he gets curfew, you check on him in school, check his grades, make sure he's following the household rules and stuff like that. And if he violates, we arrest him. And I used to be pretty good for a lot of the kids, the fear of us coming by, surprise checks, or their mom saying, Officer Reynolds, he's skipping school. And we go, and some of them made it, a lot of them didn't, unfortunately, just because it's the way things go. You can't save everybody, as you know.
Yeah, but you try. What you do is try, not say I can't help anyone, because you don't know. Like with patients, I don't know. Sometimes I have patients I think they're never going to get it. They come back and they crush it, right? And other people, oh, they got this, and then they are a disaster. So it's the same thing. It's like, who do you invest in? Who do you not, right? And so I think you kind of get a sense of someone, say, this isn't a bad kid. He just got wrapped up in bad stuff, and went down that path. But sometimes you give them, I'm telling you the importance of, and what you're doing now, I can't wait to share that with everyone. But the importance of having a mentor, just someone saying, hey, look, I've been through it. I know where you're at. Let's get you on the right track. Let's look at 50 years down the road, 12 years or 20, rather than next week.
Right. Yeah. And anyways, that was all the stuff I was doing, it was pretty cool, and then the whole, shooting incident changed my perspective. And, going back to the road was rough. Every call, the hypervigilance I was in, you start making, like, I remember I went to a call, there was an alarm on a house, typical alarm. Most of the time it's a false alarm, 99% of the time it's a false alarm. There's always a chance, right? So that's where I was at the 1% chance now, not the 99. It's just a routine alarm. And my heart's pounding, and we do, when we're checking the outside of the house, walking around, you have your gun out, you're not pointing it like, they do in TV shows with your finger on the trigger and stuff. You got it out. And I remember seeing a bike leaned up against the side of the house, and we have a lot of burglaries, sometimes drug addicts only ride a bike around. And so I'm creating my own scenario in a weird way, right? But it's for protection, right? So find a sliding door, cracked, and then we end up searching the house, and I waited for another officer, and we searched the house, and false alarm, turned out to be the owner's bike. They happen to leave the slider open. Everything's like typical false alarm. Well, not for me. I got back in my car. I'm like this, and it won't come down. It took me almost all shifts, and stress. And you're talking about cortisol levels. And then I start drinking a little bit to calm that stuff down when I get home, and not talking to my wife. How do I tell her that, and because I know what she's going to say. Yeah, you need to retire. You need to get out,
How about the personal toll officers go through? I mean, what percentage do you think, looking back, officers are either single or divorced?
I remember my academy, I had a fiance, and they all go, who's in a relationship right now? We all raised our hands, like 30 of us or whatever. And he's like, maybe one of you will stay with the person you're with right now. And I knew from my mom's own experience, yeah, he's probably right, because almost, I saw that culture growing up as a kid in a police family. So, and I didn't end up with my fiance. We ended up breaking up, but it was just other reasons, shift work, working midnights for a couple of years, and then going to day shift, and just court time, and it weighs on you, and you're not available every weekend. You're not available every evening, and the routine starts to change. Like, that's not what I signed up for, and you're like, well, this job is what I'm doing right now, and happens across the board unfortunately, it's a stressful job. That's why you see so many cops married to other cops, or married to teachers, or married to nurses, and because it's the same, they got to have someone that understands it, and it could be
yeah, that's true. No, that's true. I mean, that's part of it. I mean, the night shift and working nights and then days and going back. I've taken care of a lot of police officers over time, and I've seen the toll of, and we, at the conference, we talked about the effects of stress, the effect of sleep. And when you see that, it's like, man, if you're not sleeping and you're up all night, plus you get these adrenaline rush after you get off work, it's not like you're going to go, okay, I'm going straight to bed. I'm like, you got to wind down. It's like you just had a huge workout, So I think it's those things that people don't realize, but I think it's important for people to realize that there's a human behind that badge.
Yeah. And we don't try to get fat on purpose or get heavy, man. We end up doing what the American public does. You're hungry, go through a drive-through, or you go to a diner. I never, ever ate a donut in uniform. I saw those memes even before they were memes, with cops eating a donut. And I'm like, you were never going to catch me eating a donut. But then I was eating bagels, and now I found, it turns out they're the same darn thing, So
Yeah. So what? So let's talk about that too. What happened? So health wise, you were gaining weight. You were having some other stuff. You get injured. That probably set you back a while with working out. What was
Yeah,
happening to you mentally during this time?
I was in my own head a lot, trying to figure out, I didn't like the way I looked. I knew I was heavy. I didn't know I was that heavy. I mean, I was a football player, through high school and stuff. So I kind of had that mentality that I need to be kind of big and buff. And I didn't mind looking kind of like an offensive guard, in my uniform. And, I just thought that's me. I'm always going to have a belly and love handles. And, I'm always going to I always worked out and played a lot of basketball. I kept myself active. But my mind was more I think I was starting to go through some depression, and obviously drinking at night and stuff, and probably drinking more, and then maybe eating late, all that, just that whole combination just wasn't working. Trying to go to the gym at 12 instead of early, like everything just didn't feel right. And then I lost one of my buddies, died, police officer, and he died jogging. And he was a canine guy, Joe Crowder. And going to his funeral, whoo, here I go again. So
Yeah, no, this is real, dude. Yeah. Those emotions don't go away, man. Trust me.
Well, Joe was we were in the same academy together. I knew him for a long time, even before we were cops. And he was an Army guy, and he was just awesome, man. And he left behind two boys. In 2016, I had two boys, and I'm like that could be me, and I started to work out a little more, as they always tell you to do. And I think I was about 245, 248 at that point, heaviest I've probably ever been. Scared to get on the scale, and I think I lost about 10 pounds on my own. I got there around 238, 235, just typical, I'll cut back drinking, and I'll, whatever. I didn't know anything really about
exercise more, eat less.
Exercise more. I started jogging, and I lost some weight, and I had some nagging injuries. I hurt my back, and then that puts me on the shelf for a little bit. Typical thing that happens to everybody trying to lose weight, right? They get injured, and you got to start all over again. And then I had a buddy I played basketball with that lost 50 pounds. Dude, like I didn't see him for a while. You show up and hey, what happened? And he told me about the ketogenic diet. I'm like, what? I didn't know how to say it or spell it, And he goes, just chew on it, just look it up, see what you thought. And it took me about a month to read up on it, because I was still trying to do it my way, and I didn't really understand it. I had a lot of concussions in high school that were unreported. So I thought I was a little bit punch drunk sometimes, right? So reading about it, because I wasn't into physiology or anything. All right. So I started reading about the ketogenic diet and understanding fat for fuel. And, still was kind of, how do I start this? I always heard about carbs. I'd done Atkins in the 90s and heard it was terrible for, cholesterol and all that stuff back then. So I never really followed up again on it. I was successful on it, but I only got down maybe back then in the 90s to like 220 or something, so I never really thought it really worked long term. And then I saw the magic pill. I watched that documentary and I was like, wow, there's something to this. And just kept reading up on it. I changed, it was March of 2018. I remember going to my son's t-ball practice and I was starting fasting. I was trying to create the 16 8-hour window, because I was taught keep that metabolism going, right? You'll burn fat that way or burn calories. And I remember that fathead, it's like fathead pizza dough or something like that.
Yeah, Tom Naughton. Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't know fathead, what the heck is that? But I remember I took 2 slices with me to T-ball, and the game was at 9, and my eating time was 9. I remember I scarfed it down right before the game, just the 2 slices. It was like 2:00 later that day. I was like, hey, wait, I haven't even eaten, And then you start. I don't have to eat every freaking 2-3 hours or whatever. So and I started meal prepping, looking up recipes, and I wasn't Mr. Social Media. I mean, being a cop, you get in trouble. So I wasn't, I wasn't all over Twitter following guys like you or Doug or anybody. And, I didn't know the keto world was out there. Whoops, I just hit my mouth. Sorry. See?
No, we're good, man.
And
that's how we roll.
So I just kept educating myself. And, my last, I forgot to say, about 6 months after my shooting, there was an evidence job that opened up, a desk job, like an 8 to 4, Monday to Friday, holidays off. And I put in for it and I got the job. And that was a lifesaver at that point, because now I'm not on the road. I'm inside. I'm at home at a regular time. I'm not having to pull my gun out 6, 7 times a shift. And in turn, that just delayed what was kind of coming later on, but at this point now I'm on my health journey, and I'd suffer from PTSD from that shooting. I don't know if we want to get into that, because I do
absolutely. I definitely want
to see a therapist. During this time I was still heavy, and when my buddy died jogging, I was seeing a therapist, and it was for the hypervigilance, and there was times where they were going to put me back to the road, or if we're having hurricanes, I'm on shift, 12-hour shifts or something. And it was just bringing all this anxiety back, because the bottom line, when I was going back out there, it wasn't the fact I was going to get shot again. I was going to shoot somebody else, no doubt. And there's a couple calls I went to where I had my gun out on people, and they reached in their pocket and they were just getting their ID, even though I ordered them hands up, and I would have been technically, hey, I'm in fear for my life. I could have shot that kid trying to get his ID out. But he goes, sorry, officer. And this is when I handcuffed him. I was like, why'd you reach in your pocket, man? And he's like, I just never had a gun pointed at me, and I was just getting my ID.
Yeah, people freak out. They don't know what to do. Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, so that scared me.
Yeah.
Because, wow, even though
you were like a second, 1 second decision makes a difference.
Yeah, and I knew that stuff like that was going to happen, unfortunately. And, we've had multiple shootings in our city. I know a young officer has been in 3 shootings already, and that's kind of guys I reach out to now, my business and stuff like that. But yeah, it took a toll on me.
Let's go back for a second, like with the PTSD. I just want to make it like, what happened? Like, what were the stages you went through? Like, you have this, you get shot, you take a life, maybe. I know a lot of other officers were shooting. Do you have nightmares right away? Or are you in shock for 2 weeks? Or what was the progression of the PTSD in your case?
First, it's like, you won the Super Bowl, honestly, in the police world, because you just survived a combat battle, right? And this was real. And most of us never even shoot our weapons in the line of duty, let alone be shot and, kill a guy. So we were heroes, pats on the back, good job, and you feel good. I was a little nervous when they release your name in the news, stuff like that. You don't know how the public's going to react. And, you could try to hide your name and all that, but, there's sleuths out there that can find anything. So, yeah,
And how did the public react right away?
I always,
it depends. I guess it depends.
Well, he was a bad guy. He had robbed some people in the past. So I picked a pretty good guy if we were going to get rid of somebody. But he was a bad dude and nobody liked him. So there was no real outcry from the public. They're like, well, I remember the news broadcast, one lady's like, what do you think happens when you shoot at the police? You die, so that's the kind of reaction. I would go to churches and get some awards. It was more about an officer, not a black-white issue, and I had support, and we got honored in Washington, D.C. as National Police Officers of the Month for February 2013. They flew us up there for Police Week. We got honored, and it was, going to the candlelight vigil up there in D.C. And that's, I think, what kind of really got me going, was seeing these families of all these fallen officers. And then it's like, oh man, that could have been me, right?
And you weren't thinking that way before. Like, that's what's interesting, is that you know, I thought about it a lot when I give my wife a kiss goodbye in the morning. I'll see you tonight. And I know I'll see her tonight unless something really crazy happens.
Right.
But in your situation, you don't know every time. I think in your mind, you say, I'll make it back. Just like in the military, people say, I'm not going to be the one who gets hit. Right. And you see how random things can happen. You could be the best officer in the world and get hit, or you can get ambushed when you're doing paperwork. I mean, it's that once you realize, I think it's the way I look at it is like once Mike Tyson got knocked down, everything changed for him. Before he thought he was invincible. Then once you get knocked down, you realize, I can get knocked down just like everyone else. And then your psyche changes.
Yeah, once you get punched in the face, sometimes you don't know how you can react. And, I love the experience. My mom lost a best friend in, I think it was 1982, and in the line of duty, and she's on the wall up there. So my mom was there, and that was the first time my mom had been, and that's crazy. Her son, as a cop that gets shot in the line of duty, that was a whole nother experience for my mom to go through. And anyways, it was empowering, but it saddened me, and I think I started getting that, like victim's remorse, like, why was it that guy? Why, because we've seen random shots just kill, unfortunately, officers, like you said, in these crazy ways, ricochets or something like that, and, I get back and, every shopping center I go to, every mall, my kid's at a Christmas, he's singing on stage with the rest of his classmates. And you think I'm enjoying it? No, I'm looking around for the active shooter, and it weighs, it gets you, and it sucks to live like that, and that's why a lot of us freaking kill ourselves. You can't turn it off, It's just constant. It's like a nagging backache. Every day one of those just won't freaking go away. But imagine it's with your brain and your central nervous system,
Yeah, and I'll tell you, just as a note, a friend of mine who's a sheriff went with me to Guatemala one time, like, and he was there and he was stressed. I'm like, you're a cop, dude. What are you stressed about? He goes, here, I don't know the lay of the land. I can't. There's too much going on, and I don't have a badge and I don't have a gun. He goes, it is like being naked in the street. He goes, I feel so, and for me, I was like, I'm used to it because that's just me. But to take the badge and the gun and all that, now you're just some foreigner in a dangerous place. You start realizing the gravity of your situation. A lot of us are just, tourists don't know, and they're like, oh, I'm just walking down with my Rolex and in the middle of the inner city, like they have no clue. And most of us who've been in those situations think that and go, okay, I'm gonna look as poor as I can. I don't want to draw attention to myself. And you realize you don't want to be the drunk guy in the bar in Mexico causing a stir, right?
Right. Yeah,
so how did this affect your relationship? Did you just go inside and not share what you were feeling? Yeah, I was asking, how did that affect your relationship? Did you go inside or did you communicate everything? Were you crying? What were you doing? Were you trying to be macho with your wife and
my
family?
wife, she's awesome, man. She stuck with me through all that. I mean, I wasn't a total jerk, but I was definitely short-tempered. I used to be called Easy E, I was easy going, and all of a sudden now I could get in the red really fast for little things, and I didn't like feeling like that. Didn't know why. Just thought it was a dad being grumpy dad, stuff annoying me, but I talked to her, and like I said, when I got the evidence job, I thought everything was going to be fine. I'm good. I'm inside, and then you get some leadership changes within a department. Now they're like, yeah, we don't need a cop doing evidence. We'd rather get a cop on the road, budget cuts and all that. So now they're going to maybe get a civilian making half the money. Not that we make a lot of money, don't get me wrong, doing my job. So I'm like, oh no, now I'm going back out there. What do I do now? I started looking at retiring on a disability, but then there's such a stigma to it that I probably wouldn't have been able to get another job. Just going to hire a cop that admits he's got PTSD, right? What's he going to do? Go off and shoot up the whole, let's say I got a job, I don't know, at a big store just doing like warehouse duty, maybe I don't get that job. So I went out on my own. I just retired on my own. I, kind of just said, yeah, I got some stuff. I'm retiring early. I had enough time in. But, seeing my doctor, Dr. Barnett in Palm Beach Gardens, man, that dude, he was my guy. He pretty much said, Eric, you're going to have to learn how to dance with this. It's not going away, and he taught me some like relaxation stuff. And he talked about just stress and just, pretty much I had to somehow find a way to manage it myself. and he didn't push pills. Fortunately, the only avenue cops have is like alcohol and prescriptions.
Yeah, and people
I
don't
know
realize that the drug problem and alcohol problem, because that's how you deal with your stress. You say, I need a drink, I need a smoke, I need this, I need that, right? And so it's really hard. People don't realize that a lot of this is self-medicating just to deal with life, because once you get back from the war, once you get back from these kind of battles like you've been through, it's hard to just say, like you said, exactly, like being at the Christmas play and you're too stressed to even enjoy the moment because you're thinking of the possibilities of what can happen, or disrupted sleep, all these things that happen with PTSD that people don't realize. And the statistics on active military suicides is just devastating, and you wish there were people like you that could reach out and go, hey, look, I've been there.
Yeah, I battled workers' comp. That was not easy. They were fine with covering the injuries they could see, my foot and my leg. They weren't fine with covering the PTSD. So I had to go get a lawyer and fight them, where I had to break down in front of a room full of lawyers. And they finally got me the help that I needed, but that's what it took, so no wonder these guys aren't reaching out for help, and then half the time they cover you a couple of times and then you got to start paying the bill.
Yeah, and you know what, the other thing, and I'd like to hear what your experience was. There's a great podcast I did on this, I can't remember what episode, with Sean Baker, and what he went through. And I asked him, I said, how did you guys deal with it when you saw like they saw the worst of the worst on the front lines in Afghanistan in the surgical unit? And he said, you know what, if you heard us talking, you would think we were the biggest jerks on earth, because that's how we dealt with it. We had to make fun of it and say, did you see what happened to that guy? Look, his leg was hanging. Did you see what was like? And they make fun of it because otherwise they would go crazy. But if you're listening outside, like, so I'm wondering how your fellow police officers, do people really talk about this, or this something like you're like, I can't talk about it because it's going to hurt my career path?
I can talk about it with other cops that have gone through something similar. I can go up to them and be like, hey man, how you doing? And there's a mutual respect at that point. We know what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And they may say something like, yeah, it's like, you just got to watch the boozing, you got to exercise. I wish I knew a lot more about diet then.
Now, how do you think the ketogenic diet helped you? Do you think it helped you mentally?
Huge. You know what? I did a small little movie documentary film called Cops in Cabins. And we brought 8 cops together from different jurisdictions. Most of them retired. And we just went camping or at a cabin for a weekend. And they filmed us talking and chatting about different experiences. We didn't have anybody that was going to tell on us. We just shared stories, and there was no stress. And it was awesome to know that we're all going through the same thing. No matter, you can be in another country, we're all going through the same thing. And I saw myself in that documentary, and I was chunky monkey, boy. I was like, man, look at me, and I broke down in that documentary, I guess that's me. And it was about like the struggles.
Is that available, by the way? Can we see that on YouTube?
Or? Yeah, it's on YouTube.
All right, cool.
So
Cops in Cabins.
Yeah, it's Cops in Cabins, like a 17-minute film, and it's awesome, man. But that was the beginning of me helping more with the PTSD and other people. I was kind of coming to grips with it myself, and I kind of knew I could retire in a couple of years, so I was just waiting my time. And then, obviously, I found a buddy that was doing ketogenic probably about 5 months later, and that's when I started the whole journey. And through all that, I never knew how much fat was in our brain, right? I was always questioning, why do we have so many Alzheimer places all over South Florida? Everywhere I go, we're chasing these people sometimes because they get out of the old folks' home, And then I used to be on calls, when someone dies in their sleep, poor old guy, in a retirement home or something. We go over there, we got to make sure there's no foul play, got to turn the body over and stuff like that. That's not awesome to do, right? So then we got to list all the medications, because you got to make sure there's no narcotics in there. And so we take it, right? Because maybe it's related to the prescription. You got to assume there's more foul play, or there possibly will be. My hand used to cramp up because we had to write a desk, on the paperwork we send to the ME office or the doctor of all the prescriptions, right? Over and over. And it was crazy. So you send it in, the ME's not coming because the doctor will sign. That was always the thing. Doctor will sign. That means he signs it. And we get the report later on. It's like natural causes. this dude didn't die of natural causes. Look at these freaking bags of pills, that I was having to put into evidence.
Well, unfortunately, that's considered natural these days to be on 50 medicines when you're that age. I've given talks on it about deprescribing and what a disaster all those medicines can cause side effects and problems. And you take another one because of the side effect of the first one, and you realize how those lists get so dang long because doctors are afraid to take medicines away, but we add medicines because we think, oh, okay, if I give them medicine for that and they die of that, then at least I tried, I treated it. Instead of saying, hey, let's try to do lifestyle like what you did.
Yeah. And also, I've been involved, our department did investigations of doctors that were part of the whole, pill shopping and getting bribes. And, we would.
You know what, Eric, man? You know what? We'll do I want to do another episode with you and talk about that because that's a huge issue. And I think people need to know about that. Let's do an episode on that, on, the seniors and the pill popping and all this stuff. I think that's something we could talk about, do a separate episode because I want to do that. I really want to talk about, because we're coming up on an hour and I'm frustrated because you have so much that I want to share with people. So let's do another episode about that. And I want to talk about your brother and that kind of stuff too, but let's stay with the PTSD and how that affected you and how you, where you're at now, what you had to go through. And then also I really want to make sure people know what you're doing with your life.
Yeah. So, I started, I lost like 50 pounds in the first 6 months, doing the keto and, making my meal planning and fasting. And
5-0 again, man. 550 is your number.
It was, well, I went higher. Maybe I have to change it to keto 75 or something like that. So I was feeling good. I was like, I liked the way I looked in uniform. I had to change a few sizes, I wasn't thinking a lot about the PTSD, but it's always there, but my energy level went up. I remember I stopped sitting at work. I got one of those desks that could go up and down. And I just started watching my steps and it was just whole movement that happened to me. I remember going to my 30-year high school reunion that year. And I felt like $1 million, let me tell you. Right. I look better then than I did in high school. So, which is crazy. It's 30 years later. And, people started asking me at work, hey man, how'd you lose all that weight? And it's like, man, it's keto, and, they're like, what's that? So I started explaining to people, and started taking on a few people that would ask me questions, that little group, my phone, maybe 4 or 5 people at the department, and they start losing weight, and no, not a lot, but, and I was learning like sometimes women lose weight differently than men, I didn't know it. I thought everyone could lose the same, but, I'm learning the process of it at this time. And they just started, hey man, keto, how do I lose weight? Over and over again. And then became, I don't know if it was somebody just said keto 5-0 or it just organically popped up one day because Hawaii 5-0. I was like keto 5-0 and we got called 5-0. Oh, troll 5-0, it seemed like it was a natural fit. So then I started a little Facebook group, Keto 5-0, and I started building, say first responders, anyone wants help, reach out to me. Here's information like Dr. Lustig about sugar, or it might be Dr. Ken Berry about this, or Dr. David Diamond about cholesterol and statins. So my mind was just like starting to feed. And now I know that was also my diet at that point. I'm feeding my brain, my energy levels are good. And that was how I came up with the idea of like, we're going to retire and then we're going to buy a truck and trailer, sell our house, and we're going to travel the country. Since we're already homeschooled, we took our kids out pretty much first grade. We saw where things were going just before COVID and everything. So now we travel the country. I put my thin blue line flag up, which that's another situation that happened in New York. And I get people walking up, you a cop. First of all, they're always impressed that I'm, 50, 51 years old and I'm retired, but that was just one career. I'm trying to start this other career and
you're cut too. So you got street cred, man. You're cut, you're fit, man.
What I always say, I had a carb suit on,
Mm-hmm.
that's all it was. I had this underneath me, I didn't I didn't pick up my training. Like I'm going to get rip. I was always like this. I don't lift that much more than I used to when I was 250 pounds,
Well, you also wonder the effect of stress on all this stuff with your cortisol and being under constant stress all the time. A lot of the night nurses gain a lot of weight. There's a difference in being sleep deprived, all these factors involved too. So you're a demonstration of how important lifestyle is. Hey, cut the stress level down, get your sleep right, eat right, exercise. laugh with your kids and have fun. And I can tell people, you know, it was an honor meeting your family. You have a beautiful family. And, you know, to see you hug the kids, I see that that connection is there. And that is something people can't fake, right? I mean, that's real. And you're like, hey, I'm in your corner. Let me help you out. And just to go through the health journey you're at, people don't realize how important it is to be that healthy role model and to you know, be there for your kids and say, I want to be like, I could see your kids look at you and they say, I want to be like my dad when I grow up.
Right.
Like very few kids are like that. They you know, you could see that bond and the respect, and you've done a good job.
Thank you.
You've done a good job, and that's evident.
It's teamwork. I mean, they, you know, my oldest son's now 10. He saw me heavy. He remembers. And, you know, after I retired, you know, that's when you know, stress went down. I also discovered carnivore, you know, and doing carnivore, you know, I read Carnivore Code, you know, Dr. Saladino's book, and really opened my eyes, especially my own type of, you know, when I was doing keto, I was heavy meat keto. I just threw the broccoli and cauliflower in there out of guilt, you know, and then once I went carnivore, I lost another 25 pounds. I got to meet my abs for the first time. You know, I never knew I had them. You know, I know we have them underneath, but it was like, oh, you know, I still have, you know, my skin's still loose, you know, but that's what happens when you know, you lose 75 pounds, you know.
And what happened mentally?
You know what? I actually liked how I looked naked. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but I was like, wow, you know,
no, that's all good. But I mean, mentally, as far as the PTSD, stress, and all that. I mean,
well,
do you think the keto diet contributed, or do you think it was the getting out of the stressful situation?
Well, I was still
or
2
both.
years there doing the keto, so yeah, but it helped me so much because I was feeding my brain, and then it motivated me. You know, I started doing the keto stuff, started my group and my business to help. You know, I went to nutrition school with Doug Reynolds and, you know, the National Association of Sports Nutrition with Jeff Cotterman out there.
Oh yeah,
I did
yeah,
it
my
online.
homie out here. Yeah,
and I got
you did it all. That's why it's so great, and that you can help other people. So tell people about Cops and Campers.
All right, Cops and Campers is a group that I'm starting. It's a retreat for cops and first responders. I just called it Cops and Campers because there's kind of a story behind the whole logo and stuff like that, which we can talk another time. But we're doing our first event in Ithaca, New York, June 24th, 25th, 26th. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're getting all the cops around. We're trying to go to pro first responder campsites. There's some out there that really don't support the blue. So why give them our money? So we're going to go to Spruce Row in Ithaca, and we got a band coming Saturday night. We're gonna have like chicken barbecues. Well, you know, I'm gonna work on what we're gonna be using as sauces and stuff like that, but I still got to get people out there before I can talk to them about nutrition. And you know, I found out Dr. Ben is actually graduated from Ithaca, so maybe I can get him out there to come talk to some of these guys.
Man, he's awesome, man. He's an awesome guy.
And
really great guy.
That's his training I've been doing. I've been doing resistance training for a year and a half. And I haven't felt better. Man, I'm running around with my kids in the park at 52 years old. You know, I mean, I'm still 52, but you see these other parents on their phones as their kids are turning.
Honestly, I thought you were, when I met you, I'm like, you're way younger than that. You have a young spirit and you got this drive and motivation. You have a passion to help people. I think that's something that's super important, you know, and so you're doing great stuff and you're giving back. I think that's so important to the first responders. I'm telling you, you know, I just had an episode of we're going to talk about on the podcast where a friend of mine went down. We thought it was a heart attack. It turned out to be okay. But to have Big Brother come, you know, the first responders, the police putting their hand on my shoulder saying, hey, it's going to be okay. We're here. And so that is so important because these guys need someone to put their hand on their shoulder too and say, hey, it's okay. We're here for you. Right. And that's what you're doing for people with PTSD who's been through stuff that you've been through. So you're bringing healing all the way around. So it's just awesome. And I know this is going to be something that, you know, a lot of people will send this episode to their first responders or to police officers. And I think it will also, I think it's important for people, like you said, I think I was going through depression back then and I just didn't know it. Now, making people just say, maybe I am depressed. Maybe I do have PTSD. Also for their partner, husband or wife or boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, is that, okay, have some compassion. They're going through stuff that you cannot identify. I mean, I would come home from work after being in the trauma unit and go, I can't even explain to you what I saw today. I can't even like put words to it, you know, and you know what I'm saying? When you see things like that, when you go through major trauma, it stays with you. I mean, there's things that's part of why I did this podcast. There's stuff I saw and say, man, this doesn't make sense. And then all of a sudden it does. And then you say, okay, I get it. You know, what they were going through, or, you know, when you have a police officer shoot themselves, and all these things, that these people are called to help people. And when they see they're not being effective at that, that's the same thing. Doctors, I mean, the suicide rate in doctors through the roof because they're not helping people and they know it, and they're just bought off by the system and they're just another cog in the wheel. And so at some point, I got to do something different or I got to change it. And that's what you did too. So I definitely want to have links to all this stuff. And you know what I'm going to do? Let's make this a two-parter. I want to talk to you about it. There's so much that we need to talk about.
Okay.
But, you know, your story is amazing, you know, and what you've been through, and you come out of the other side and you give other people hope that maybe are gaining a lot of weight or are struggling with PTSD. So I have to ask you on closing is, what's life's best medicine for you? What gives you your drive? Where do you go when everything turns to heck, like what you've been through? Like what kept you going?
You know, it's crazy seeing people get healthy. I can see how you guys developed this passion for being a doctor. Not that, trust me, I'm not going to medical school. I'm not doing that, but just, I know what you're feeling now, you know, and to see people change their lives. I guess one of my old coworkers just hit me up. She's down 75 pounds now in a year. That's what it's about, you know? And sorry, I'm really passionate about that stuff, man, you know, and I get to send her one of my Keto 50 coins, you know, and that's what I do. When they do something that outstanding, I give them something and want them to hold on to and remember it. You know, they want to fall off the wagon, you know. Where's your coin at? I know I
got it, man. It's right here in my bag. I got it, man. I got it. Yeah. I had it in my pocket when I gave my talk. Right. So I think is those kind of things is that you just realize it, and your passion is those tears are emotion of saying, look, I'm making a difference. I'm helping people. And it feels good. It feels good.
And that's what helps release the stress too, you know, by me doing this therapeutic, you know?
Yeah. And I didn't know your whole story, but you know, I knew you had a story, just looking in your eyes, talking to you and seeing your passion, seeing how you are with people. You're kind, you're a decent guy, and you've been through a lot. So I think being able to share that, us guys aren't good at sharing our emotions and what we have inside. So hopefully people listening will grasp onto that, because I'll tell you, it's in a microcosm. You can look at Twitter and see people who are nasty and mean to people all the time. And you can see people who are uplifting and kind and decent. So who do you want to follow? That's what this podcast is about, is decide. You could be around negativity and anger and resentment, or you could be around people who say, look, I get my passion for helping people, knowing that injured officer, I could put my hand on their shoulder, that first responder who's seen the worst of the worst. And when you were there and you can identify, you know, sometimes people say, well, why did God put me through that crazy thing? Well, because you could help someone else through that. Right. And so there's stuff I've experienced in life where I can say, yeah, I've been there. I know what you're feeling. But if you haven't been there, I can't say, well, I know what it's like to be addicted to drugs. If I've never been addicted to drugs, I don't know what it's like. I could just infer from what I've heard from other people. So that's the power of what you're doing, is that these guys know, you know exactly what they're talking about and what they're feeling. And you can put words to what they can't even put words to. So the healing you're doing is not just diet, it's that emotional connection. It's being there and having passion, and you want people to do better, and you want to help them, and you want to encourage them. And then you get a call like that where someone loses 75 pounds. I have people come and go, guess what, doc, I'm off on my insulin. Like, you don't think that makes me stoked every day, right? To hear those kind of things. Then my mood is, and I'll tell you the biggest thing I'll tell you just in closing is that the biggest surprise I've had in a low carb ketogenic diet, I started it for diabetes because diabetes is our enemy, and we all know that. But the biggest surprise has been the mental aspects of people saying, gosh, I feel good. I'm laughing again. I can go outside. I'm meeting my neighbors. I'm going for walks. I have the energy to play with my kids, because you could have been on a road. Just think, if you would have gained 50 or 75 pounds, where you'd be now. You wouldn't be playing t-ball with your kids and doing stuff like that. You would be sitting or playing catch. You'd be saying, like, go out and play. I'm going to sit on the couch and drink a couple beers.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what the Cops and Campers is about, man. There's a group also with them, and Cops and Campers on Facebook, or you can go copsandcampers.com or keto50.com. I have all my links there, and we're going to be looking forward to this Ithaca, you know, get together, man. And I hope to get them there just to find somebody. They're going to meet somebody there that can make a difference in their life. It may be me, and maybe another officer that's in another city across the country. And he's going to feel comfortable talking to that person, or she's going to feel comfortable, you know, and that's what it's about. Because sometimes that's all you need, is just one connection, somebody to reach out to in a moment of darkness to get you out of it, you know.
One person who's the light. So one person who that is awesome. That gives me goosebumps when you say that, actually, because it's so true. It just takes one person. Like when I go to funerals, I don't hear people say, you know how many cars the guy had? Oh my gosh, he had the biggest house on the neighborhood. They'll say, gosh, that day I was crying and he came and helped me. I was going to kill myself that day. And he came and said, hey, look, everything's gonna be all right. Let me put my arm around it. Let me help you. Let me help you get back on track. Whatever it is, those kind of that human contact, like what you're doing, is you won't realize probably for a while, but you're realizing it now. But how many lives you touch, because when you change that one person's life, you change the wife's life and the kid's wife and the life and all those kind of things. And the impact of the community where these people go out, like guys like you who go out in the community now, and you're saying, hey, let me help you. They're people that I probably couldn't reach or other people couldn't reach. And so that's what's awesome is we all do our part, basically. Like we all do our part. So you're doing a huge part, and that's an underserved area that people just don't have a clue unless you've been there. You know, people don't realize the stress that you're under. I realize it just because of talking to people all the time, but it's important to have someone like you who you clearly have a passion. You want to help people and you're doing the right thing. So let's circle back around and we'll talk about the rest of the stuff. But I'm so glad you joined me. I'm so glad we crossed paths in Boca, and I'm just really excited about what we have planned.
Well, it was a big influence was Fat Fiction. Also, seeing you when I saw you, I was like, hey, it's a movie star from Fat Fiction. So, thanks for being so cool and very open to everybody. I watched all you doctors there at that conference. You guys are freaking magical, man. It was awesome. You guys talked to everybody. And I know as a police officer, people can walk up to you and be all chatty, and sometimes it's not the right time, but you got to deal with it. But you guys were all such heroes to me. So
yeah, I'll tell you, for me too, thank you for saying that, because, we love it. We love like your stories. We want to get them out, and people like Ken Berry, he's a really famous guy, and he was just there hanging out, being cool and talking to everyone and doing all that stuff. There's so many of those guys. It's great. It's great to see that, because people have a passion like you have a passion. If you have a passion about it, you want to talk about it. If you want to talk to me about your hemorrhoids, I'm probably not going to be as excited to talk to you about it, right? But if you want to talk to me, say, hey, look, I'm feeling better. I'm coming off my meds. And, we kind of have fun doing that. And but that emotional aspect of that human connection. But what we showed was the importance of community, where a nutritionist, doctor, all these different people could come together and give their opinion and what they're seeing. And then we can say, oh, that's a good idea. Not everyone has to be drinking the same Kool-Aid. And that's what makes us get better as a community. So keep up the great work, man. It's an honor to have you on. I really appreciate you joining me. And we kind of just said, hey, let's do this tomorrow. Here you go. And we're doing it. So this is really, really awesome. But part 2 will come up. We'll tell the rest of your story, because there's a lot more to tell. And man, and people, if you're listening and you're in Ithaca, New York, and you're a videographer, like go videotape this thing, man. This will be awesome to have someone come out, take pictures and share it with the world.
We're going to do a documentary on it. I got a cop that's going to come out, and he did actually the Cops and Cabins movie. So he's going to come out and do something with this. So, hey man, I'm going to keep it rolling. Like Dr. Berry, I want a book that he signed. So the book I was going to have him sign, I gave to somebody that didn't have it. I'm paying it forward, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, keep paying it forward, man. That's life's best medicine. So everyone, you're privileged to hear this. This guy's a great guy. He's doing great stuff. Eric, thanks for joining me. And, everyone, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and look for that place where you can get your passion, whatever it is. Figure out how you can help people along the way. Reach out. This is what we need right now. And that's a big part of this podcast is how do I do my little part? And a lot of people think that they don't measure up or they don't have the skill set. You do. It's just being that one person at that one place. And I'm telling you, we've seen it so many times. So Eric, man, blessings. Thanks for taking time away from your awesome family to spend time with me. And we'll get this out very quickly.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for listening to this episode. We greatly appreciate your support. We would greatly appreciate a positive thumbs up on all of the platforms like iTunes and Spotify or wherever you're listening. And we just thank you for our Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate your help in getting this message out. We think there's a lot of important information. And hopefully this helps you. Have a great day. And thank you for listening. And thank you for your support.